Welcome to the Across the Bar podcast, where we talk about why today's headlines are important for your success at work. My name is Peter Rahbar. I'm your first call on legal issues.
And I'm Laura Brounstein, your first call on comms and content. Peter, how are you doing?
Poof, what a loaded question these days.
I know.
So let's set the stage. We're recording on
Thursday afternoon.
Wednesday afternoon. See, we don't even know what day it is. Wednesday afternoon, less than 24 hours after this supposed ceasefire that's not a total ceasefire. Less than 48 hours after our president said he's going to wipe off a whole civilization of 93 million people off the planet, which also happens to be my native country. So I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. How are you doing?
Oy vey. It's been, you keep thinking that it can't get crazier, and then it totally does.
Just goes next level.
Next level. All right, the first thing I'm going to talk about, the first topic relates to that, but I'll get to the overview, which is we are going to talk about how to balance work and war, which is an insane thing to say out loud. Corporate retreats gone amok, and are they good or bad? How to handle being voluntold, and I'm not saying where headline is inspiring this story, but just based on recent news headlines, what to do if your boss has lost his mind. That'll be
Or her mind.
Or her mind.
Or their mind,
You're right. I was being binary.
Their mind.
You're right.
Yeah.
Okay, so to your point that it's been a week, I have to admit, yesterday, I had a hard time concentrating at certain points when it was like our president's talking about world war and annihilation of a culture, a people, bloodshed against innocent people. And if not immediate bloodshed, their quality of life being destroyed by all of their infrastructure being destroyed. It's hard to do your invoices when that's happening.
Yeah, I mean I could relate. I was in a state of semi paralysis. Obviously I'm Persian. I have family in Iran. I have family throughout the Middle East. I have family throughout the United States. I was born here in a country I love. But to hear the president say that he's going to wipe out the whole country, or earlier in the week say that it's going to be power plant and bridge day, and then also mock Muslim religion in his tweet, these are things you just never expected to see, and they're impossible to ignore. Yeah, impossible to ignore. They're really like the words of a monster, frankly. And, I don't try not to get political on this show, but it's hard to view it any other way.
Let's get political.
Yeah, I mean, I try. As I said, I try.
Okay.
But it's hard to view it any other way. And, the reason why we're bringing this up is because, it's not just for you and I to vent about it. I mean, if you're a manager, your employees are thinking these same things. They're human beings.
What we have said before when things have happened, put out employee internal communication, telling people to speak. You're aware that it's a tough time, and speak to your manager if you have a hard time or having a hard time concentrating or working personally. But do you do that once a week? Right now, we're at war. There's a ceasefire, but there's a war. How do you balance work and war for your team? And is it fair to say, I guess it's like any other mental health day, I'm nervous, my family's in a bunker, I can't concentrate.
Well, war is a very serious thing, obviously. And it's kind of crazy that life is just going on in this country because we're not in the direct path of it. And military service is voluntary and all these things. But I mean, look, Congress went on a 2-week vacation during a war, which is
unbelievable,
crazy, which is unbelievable to me and despicable, frankly. But I
think there's no precedent for that.
It's shocking.
Concession for war.
It's shocking. It's shocking. Shame on both parties in Congress for that. But
I don't think think you can blame the other party. That was
No,
completely
you could blame
the House
both.
makes that decision.
Well, whatever it is, both of them. I
Sorry,
like to,
that one
to say
we're not
all
empowered to
around.
control that.
But so my point is, war's a serious situation. There's nothing wrong with on a weekly basis reaching out to your employees and reminding them, what resources are available if they're having issues, if they want to talk to somebody. I mean, hopefully in bigger companies, medium to bigger size companies, you have mental health resources available. If you're a smaller company, many of your health plans or, payroll providers even, have resources that you can turn on with a small fee. They're important resources for employees. I mean, mental health care is very expensive. A lot of people are not going to go out and do it unless they really have to. They're certainly not going to do it for day-to-day issues like this. But to have these resources available to your employees is super important, super valuable. If you're a manager, you should just be keeping the fingers on the pulse of your team and just noticing if someone's not sort of at the same energy level they've always been at, talking with them, checking in, seeing if anything's going on. I mean, these are things you should be doing anyway.
Anonymous survey of the office and saying like what kind of resources would be helpful or how are you feeling on this. I think sometimes you do have to ask. You can't just assume that you know.
I think that's a good practice to do on a regular basis anyway.
Yeah.
War or no war, once a year, ask what kind of benefits would be helpful. It doesn't mean you have to provide them. That's one of the conversations that I had commonly with managers about surveys like that is, well, if we survey and they answer with things they want, then there's going to be a level of expectation that we have to provide it. And I think you just have to be very clear in saying, we're considering some new benefits, we're considering a refresh of our benefits. We're not, absolutely going to do everything that is put forward, but we'd like to hear your suggestions, and so we could take a look at some new things.
I think it's a case of this is going to help us prioritize. Obviously, we can't do everything.
Or convene a small group of
Yes.
employees or different focus groups and do it. But certainly during a period like this, periodic messaging
Is a good idea. Or telling
and
people
checking in.
their individual teams or one-on-ones. I would just make sure people feel a little bit tucked in right now, even though it is a higher the employer's market right now. Certainly, it's not an employee's market. People have memories. Stand up now.
Right, and employers are understandably concerned. They don't want to make statements that could perhaps garner the attention of the government and get them in the crosshairs of the president, et cetera.
Yeah.
So they don't want to make big statements like that. Then they certainly don't want to say anything that could be viewed as anti-patriotic also. But you can have smaller sessions, smaller messaging, individual messaging from managers to employees to see what's going on, to offer support, et cetera. And it won't be reported back to the government.
No.
Or it shouldn't be.
No,
So.
and just realize you don't know who on your team has family in Iran or Lebanon or Israel or Qatar or any of these places. And it might be all of the above. So chicken.
Fear of the government should not get in the way of good management practices or doing what you believe is the right thing.
That's not true either.
Why not?
I mean, we want that to be true.
How is it not true?
Because
How is it not true?
there are certain things, if being a good manager to me means protecting an employee who is having citizenship issues. Right now, my government is telling me you're not being, fear of reprisal from ICE could be a problem. I think that there are a lot of situations right now that this specific administration is making retribution a regular practice. And we can't minimize how that can impact people. You and I are both out there, I think, trying to be as brave as we can be saying things, but I understand why it's scary for people.
Well, sure, I understand that. But I think there's also ways to do things. Like if you believe it's important to protect that employee, if you believe it's important to support your employees, there are ways to do that without making grand statements, without making public statements, without directly taking on the government.
Please understand, my point Like,
Yeah.
I always want to help everyone and have taken risks to do so at times. But I think people also need to understand the repercussions they could face as they take actions to support people in their community. Sorry. Did I get too far off the trail on this?
I don't know. I mean, I think there's a lot of brave people in Minneapolis and other
Of
places who
course,
would say otherwise. Like, you got to punch the bully in the face.
100%. And I am a big supporter of that. But I want people doing that with eyes wide open. Like, this is not
Sensibly. You want
sensible.
them to do it sensibly.
If I want to help someone in Texas who is unable to get a life-saving or just needed abortion, I'm not saying I'm not going to help them, but I have to be aware of the fact that that is a felony in the state of Texas.
Yes. Don't break the law. But sensible help.
Yes, yes. Which is what, all the doctors that see residents of other states are offering.
Brave people.
Brave people. Yes, very much so. Okay, brave people are people who go on corporate retreats. I
Wow.
hate a corporate retreat.
Great transition.
All right, I don't hate a corporate retreat. I think they can be actually some of the best money spent and investment in your company to get people to bond when it's done smartly. But when it's done broily, it can go down fast.
What'd you say? Broly or
Broily.
Broly?
That's my new word.
Okay.
Broily.
Okay.
Like when there is a bro perspective on the planning. Like the company, so you sent me, where was that article from? Wall Street Journal?
Yeah, it's been flying, making the rounds. Right? The 2017 Plex company retreat in Mexico, which, quickly went awry. I think almost before they even got there, it went awry. Some great stories about how the hotel manager quit, the chef quit, the CEO arrived on site and got stomach poisoning, the Navy SEAL guy.
Navy SEAL. See that?
Yeah.
As you know, my worst nightmare is being expected to do athletic things
Right.
in a work setting. Like my lack of athleticism will hold me back professionally has been a lifelong fear.
So you see Navy SEAL guy on the retreat, brochure, and you're immediately
I am
terrified.
immediately like getting a note from home. Like I am getting a note from my, colorist saying I can't participate in group sports. I don't know. I'm just saying. I don't
I
do it.
mean, and that's just because of the physical activity, not because you're intimidated by them or anything like that, right? I mean,
I am not a super physically capable person. I mean, thank God I am not differently abled. I have the use of everything. I'm just not super coordinated. And so
well, I think the
I
thing that
would
did it for,
also,
yeah,
if someone was telling me to like crawl around and get dirty, like I wouldn't represent the company well in that setting probably.
yeah, be
Because you
tough.
can imagine I would be like, can you fuck off?
What about if they told you had one of the activities was not physical activity, it was an eating challenge where they
Oh
had these
no.
covered platters and then each one you unveiled was worse
Why?
than the one
Why?
before.
This is a bro choice. No woman would make a choice to put people in like a situation of like, oh, we're uncomfortable and we're all laughing at you. Oh,
Yeah, I think one of the groups had to eat a tarantula.
one guy
and,
ate a tarantula and the rest
and
of
a guy actually did it.
the team was like, dude, you don't have to. We wouldn't do it. And he was like, fuck that, I'll eat it.
Yep. I think it's kind of tough. That's a tough
Other
trade-off for a
than
job.
saving the life of your children or spouse, is there any reason you would eat a tarantula?
I don't think so. I can't think of one.
No.
But the point is, company retreats could be great. I'm sure you went on some good ones, and I know you went on some bad ones, and I've
Well,
been on
no.
some good ones
So
and bad ones.
Peter is
They could be great.
referring to the fact that I worked at WeWork for one illustrative year from 2018 to 2019. And the good news for me was that I started right after the corporate retreat in 2018, which was written about in the New York Times as being sort of a nightmare. And then the company was basically imploding and not getting investment for its IPO. And so they canceled the 2019 retreat.
Was the 2018 one the one in the movie, like upstate New York,
No, I'm not sure.
or
There was a
or a
couple
TV
different.
show?
They showed a couple different years.
Yeah, looked
Yeah,
wild.
in
It's
that.
too bad you missed that.
Yeah.
Looked really.
One of the best trips, though, I have ever been on, ever, was when I was an editor at Self Magazine in '07 or '08, but i.e., before, when there was still money in the world, like just money everywhere in that glossy space of publishing. And they sent us on a sales trip. All the salespeople and marketing people took their top advertisers to the brand new Four Seasons Punta Mita. And they took 2 editors to be dancing monkeys, like the entertainment. And it was me and my friend Leah Wire. And when I tell you, that was like 3 nights at the Four Seasons Punta Mita. And as long as you were hanging with an advertiser, no spend was inappropriate.
Yeah, well, that's not a retreat. That's a boondoggle.
It was the best time.
Yeah, I mean, retreats could be great,
Very close.
and I think the best retreats that I've been on are ones that have been planned by
Women.
like a group of people who have different interests and are at different levels of the cohort going on the retreat. So not just the boss and not just the 2 underlings, but like, a couple levels down. Everyone gets a chance to contribute and give
Good
ideas.
retreat can be amazing. Like you do
Yeah.
get to create new connections and pathways for productivity in the group. It's like you're making new little like connections probably if it goes well. The whole time.
I think the stupidest trend, which luckily I missed, is the on-site offsites.
Yeah,
Like
that's
the
the
offsites that are just in your office. Like that sucks.
Listen, corporate retreats can be great, but I think when you put your staff in uncomfortable situations where they feel like if I want my boss to think I'm cool, I have to do something that scares me a little or drink more
Yeah.
than I want to, those are bad things.
Yeah. Drinking contests, definitely not. Definitely not. And in fact, I would say might want to find a way to limit the alcohol somehow. But
I have been
you'll probably tell me I'm not cool for saying that.
No. I mean, I think that you need to certainly have people in charge who are in charge of their faculties at all times. And I think you need to be really respectful about what people are comfortable with. Because I've definitely worked places. You can imagine which ones where there was pressure from those in charge to drink or use substances more than some people wanted to.
Yeah. Not good.
Not good.
Not good.
Or I definitely worked places where there was a lot of pressure to wear high heels. And that was also a problem for me.
I used to work at a company that wouldn't allow women to wear pantsuits. So how
What
about
company
that?
was that?
Not going to be named.
Is that legal still?
No, and it's not legal then either. But they didn't care.
It must have used to be. I mean, the White House didn't allow women to wear pants until the Clinton administration.
Well, they make the rules, so.
There you go.
There you go.
Okay. Next, we have a really good topic that I'm pulling up. Voluntold. Okay, so there was a great story in Forbes where they gave advice on how to handle it when your boss tells you to do something. And that is when you are basically said, hey, great opportunity. Here's new responsibility, but no greater compensation. What do you do, Peter?
Yeah, no greater compensation. Maybe it has something to do with your job. Maybe it doesn't. Usually something that's like completely out of the blue. And depending what level you're at in a company might have different ramifications. I mean, I've been in this situation many, many times in my career, and like it's never a good one. It's always awkward, but it's important to handle it the right way.
Well, no, sometimes you're voluntold to do things that are huge opportunities, and you've got to be able to see that. Like if you see like, oh, wait a second, nobody else wanted to do this, but I'm getting told to, and I can shine here, go in.
It certainly is a great way to stand out and show support for your boss and leadership. And hopefully when you're in one of these situations, you can, have that perspective and really not have an adverse reaction in the first instance, but also use it as a real opportunity to shine. Obviously, you're being in the best case scenario, you're being asked because you're trusted, and your boss or your leadership chain thinks that you are someone who could get things done, or someone who is reliable. And so that's why they're asking you to do something that maybe is otherwise outside of your, scope of duties. And so I would say, do your best to embrace the opportunity, and do your best
I
to
think
perform
your
in that
earlier
situation.
point, though, whether or not it is a substantive aligned with your general function matters a lot. Like if this is an opportunity to show you can do work at a higher pay grade, show them that you can do higher things. Um, but if this is, oh, can you go pick up my kid after school? You can push back.
Yeah, I mean, certainly those kind of things, if you're told to do personal, like this was a topic we talked about a lot back in the day. Like, my boss is asking me to do personal stuff outside of, work stuff. And that's just not appropriate. A boss shouldn't be doing that. And maybe an occasional, like, hey, can you help me out with something might be appropriate.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I could think of some that might be appropriate. Like, I'm
Do you want
sponsoring an event. Can you come attend? Or I bought a table.
100%.
Could
It's
you
when
help
it
fill
becomes a
it?
habit.
Yeah.
Like I
But
have been in a lot of workplaces where because of the crisis in childcare in this country, um, people had to bring their kids into the office. And let me just say, it was never a male assistant that got asked to like babysit the kid during the day. It's always a female assistant.
right.
And
Right.
that's like once or twice. You do what you ever help out. But if it becomes like a regular thing, it's annoying.
Yeah. And look, if you're a boss and you are hiring someone, and this comes up a lot in assistant roles, like if the assistant is going to be asked to do personal things, that's just something you disclose up front and say, this job's going to require from time to time that you help me out with personal matters. And you put it in the offer letter,
Which
and
is
that's
allowed
It's
if that
over.
is the job, right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
if part of the
As long as you're
job
paying the
is
person.
you're gonna have to like get me lunch every day,
Yeah.
or whatever it is.
Right. And I would say, for managers and bosses, like you have to be careful about how often you're asking someone to do things beyond the scope of their duties, and then how much you're maybe burdening or asking the same person over and over again, which may be
If it is
a
not,
sign of favoritism or a sign of trying to force them out, or, something like that. It could raise issues like that, and you have to be mindful of it. But I think the greater point is, we talked about this last week. Employees are feeling kind of stuck in their jobs, and they're feeling that managers are taking advantage of them. And this is one of the ways they're doing it. And I would say to a manager, just be careful about it. Don't overuse your power. Everything goes in cycles. And so we may be at a point right now where people feel kind of stuck and not as mobile, but that won't be the case in a few years.
and never forget the people you see on your way up, you'll see on your way down.
Yeah.
So be nice.
Exactly. It's important to be nice to people and treat them well.
Exactly.
Not too hard either. How about that?
Oh, well, it depends on the person, Peter.
Yeah.
All right. Now, we're not going to say what news story, what headlines we are ripping this next topic from, but say you are an executive at a company, public company, let's start with. And then you can tell me if it's different for public or private. And you feel that the head of the company has lost his goddamn mind and is making decisions that are fiscally irresponsible, have some bodily irresponsibility,
Body irresponsibility. That's an
yeah,
interesting one.
like
Okay.
could cause bodily harm to other employees.
Oh, okay.
Um, is there anything you can do in the private sector at a public or private company? Because we are watching, the leader of some free world right now lose his mind on social media. And we're all just kind of like, huh,
Yeah. Haha.
yeah, what do you do if, like, this is in your company?
It's a good question because it does happen a lot,
Yeah.
frankly. There are companies, there are clients I've had, companies where the whole culture of the company is like literally called the culture of insert the name of the CEO. Or, there's tyrannical mid-level or
I
high-level
worked for Adam
bosses.
Newman. I mean, it's a matter of public record that he was wandering around in the village barefoot getting yelled at by Jamie Dimon during the midst of, WeWork's explosion. There was every reason for people to worry about his stability at that moment.
Yeah. Well, I would say if you're on your way in and you hear these rumors or see some of the crazy behavior firsthand, you certainly shouldn't assume it's just going to go away. Like if you're on the way in
But like,
and
do
you
you
have
have
an opportunity.
the ability to go to the board if it's a public company? Like,
Sure. Well, it depends on the behavior, right? So, certainly if the executive or the manager is doing something illegal and all employees and especially senior employees have obligations to report that, whether it's to compliance or to a board audit committee or to a hotline. And hopefully you're at a company where all these things exist, where there are complaint mechanisms. And
does that exist at most public companies?
Yes, certainly. A public company board should have an audit committee. It should have a hotline. It should have a
Audit
compliance
committee, though,
officer.
like when they are not independent board members, it doesn't matter if there's an audit committee. If Tesla had an audit committee, they would not think that Elon Musk.
I think it still matters, but I think if you're the employee or the executive, you got to remember these are serious moments. If you're going to accuse a top executive of erratic, crazy, potentially illegal behavior, that's a very serious thing. You should not do it lightly. So
No.
my advice would be talk to a lawyer or talk to a trusted friend about, A, is this behavior something you should report? B, how do you do it? You want to be protected. I have clients or potential clients who come to me who've reported things that aren't necessarily legal issues, but they've reported basically asshole bosses. And then they end up losing their jobs because of it. And they come to me and they say, well, isn't that retaliation? I'm like, yes, but it's not retaliation protected by the law, because you didn't say they were a harasser. You just said they were mean or they were yelling at everybody.
What if you and I have also been in situations where someone is wonderful and well-meaning, but they are advanced in years and just unable to make good judgments? Same?
Well, I would say, HR could be a resource for that. Talk to HR also. But again, these are serious conversations, so you got to be careful.
Blow back at you.
Yes, you could. But those would be the channels. Now, if you're in a public company or there's a legal issue involved or legal misconduct,
Whistleblower.
there are whistleblower programs. There are government agencies that, in theory, are supposed to be enforcing these things. The government agencies right now on the federal level.
Have you ever had a client who was involved in a whistleblower situation?
Yes, multiple.
Oh,
Yeah.
and you help them navigate it?
Me and others, yes. I am not a whistleblower lawyer. That's a specialty, but I've worked with counsel together, co-counsel on those matters. Very serious, very substantial SEC, whistleblower program with significant financial rewards if, you have a legitimate complaint that results in a recovery. But again, even those programs, you need to know how to submit your complaint to make sure they get read, because people submit tons of complaints, especially now with,
Did Frances Hagen, that wrote the Sheryl Sandberg Facebook book, get any money from that suit?
I'm not sure. I know she didn't get any money from the book because she violated her NDA or whatever, but yeah. So look, I would say if you're experiencing that behavior, there should be channels available within your company to report it and deal with it. You shouldn't try and do it on your own, but you should also seek advice to make sure the issue is actually worth raising and if it is the right way to raise it. And I would always say, no job is ever worth you enduring abusive, harmful, potentially illegal behavior. You could always just leave too and raise it from the outside. And that's another way to do it if you have other options. Not everybody has that ability.
Okay. All right. I think we're ready for heroes and zeros.
Heroes and zeros.
What's your zero?
Well, we already covered the tweets, but another story that just came out today was that Pete Hegseth, so he's my zero, not just because his suits don't fit but he apparently threatened and intimidated the Pope over supporting U.S. war efforts, and specifically one of the Pope's envoys.
Oh, I saw
And
that. I
they,
saw
they,
that.
you know, expressed displeasure over the lack of support from the Pope.
Why are you fucking with the Pope?
And apparently threatened them so badly that the Vatican thought they might be attacked. Okay. Don't do that. The Pope is cool.
do that.
Pope Leo's amazing. Big sports fan. First American Pope.
We love him.
Again, I think this is just the president upset that the Pope has a higher approval rating than he does and gets more attention than he
You're
does.
right. I think you're right. I guess my zero is Hassan Piker and the fact that the Democratic Party seems to be embracing him.
Shit.
Make no mistake, people. This is a bad, bad man. He
Yeah.
very clearly said, obviously, the United States deserved 9/11. He very clearly said, I don't care if there were fucking rapes on October 8th. It doesn't change my opinion on anything. He is vitriolic and frightens me, and I hope more people will pause before just embracing him.
It's crazy to me, like how he has any significant platform and how hard people are finding it to, you know, denounce a lot of the things he said. I mean, it's just I don't understand it. You know, sometimes this movement of like free speech and whatever that turns out to be complete bullshit goes a little too far, and you know, the Democrats seem to have real trouble in sort of getting out their message, even in obvious settings and obvious when the message is just so
But the
open and
horseshoe
obvious.
of like Hassan Piker and Nick Fuentes being like over here, I don't know. They seem similar to me.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on this one.
Pure
Heroes.
men.
Yeah.
I mean,
Who's
the
your
Crew of
hero?
Artemis. Are we kidding?
Again, don't repeat heroes.
I mean, they're amazing though. Those pictures we're getting back, it gives you hope that this human spirit might prevail, doesn't it?
I thought you were going to say Nutella was your hero for being the spread that's traveled the farthest in space.
No, I mean, mazel to you, Nutella, but
Yeah.
just in general, that's so cool what they did.
Very cool, insanely cool.
you?
I would say. My hero this week is my mother. It's her 75th birthday tomorrow.
Happy birthday,
Happy birthday.
Laura Brounstein.
And obviously a very important person in my life, and so want to make sure she's celebrated appropriately
I love
and
that.
acknowledged.
Happy
So happy
birthday.
birthday, Mom!
All right, that seems like a great note to end on.
I think so. We talked about a lot of tough things, but here we ended
Yeah,
up
we're
in the
ending on
light.
a good note.
Yes,
Outer space and good moms.
exactly,
Thumbs up.
exactly. So thank you everybody for
And everyone
watching
that listened.
and listening, and Sadie for editing
Yes.
and producing. And we'll see you next week on Across the Bar.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.